Alright, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be watching Why the UFC is Basically a Cartel by MMA Explained. Y'all go ahead and give him a subscribe too. Alright, let's get into the video.
We all know the UFC underpays fighters.
Yeah, we know that. We know the UFC definitely underpays their fighters.
Especially starting contracts on $10,000 to show, $10,000 to win.
Jesus, you're only making $20K if you win a fight at the UFC?
But have you ever really asked yourself, why? Maybe they just don't have enough money. For example, at UFC 306, the worst floor seat cost was $12,000. One seat, $12,000. That means one chair was worth more than a fighter who showed up, fought, and lost.
No,
so why is
nuts.
this happening? One short, one long. The short answer, they don't need to pay more. The long answer, let's break it down. In the 2000s, MMA wasn't just the UFC. There was real competition like Pride in Japan, Strikeforce in the US, WEC, or Elite XC. If you were a fighter back then, you had options. And because you had options, the UFC had to pay more. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't a monopoly. But
I know when the UFC first started, they were really struggling getting income. And Dana White had to go to the Fertitta brothers to ask for like millions of dollars in investments, and they were down like millions and millions of dollars for trying to push the UFC, and they weren't making profit. So I imagine them paying the fighters so low started from them not making any money initially, and then eventually they saw, well, these guys will still keep taking this low pay, so let's just keep paying them low while the business makes a bunch of money. That's my thought process on why UFC fighters are paid so little, but let's keep going.
instead of fighting competition, they did what billionaires always do. They bought the competition. Pride, bought and shut down. Strikeforce, bought and absorbed. WEC, gone. Elite XC, collapsed. And the UFC picked up the pieces. One by one, the options disappeared. And when the dust settled, only Bellator was left standing. At first, Bellator was a solid competitor. They picked up whatever the UFC didn't want anymore, like Rampage Jackson and Chael Sonnen. They had few solid names like Are You Not Entertained? Patricio Pitbull, Michael Venom Page, Douglas Lima, Shlemenko, and others. Bellator wasn't the UFC, but it was real. It kept some pressure on the system. Until it didn't. Over time, Bellator fell apart. Bad business, bad matchmaking, bad leadership. And while Bellator crumbled, the UFC kept rising. The 2010s were the years of McGregor. Massive fights, massive pay-per-views. By the mid-2010s, the UFC wasn't just the biggest promotion. It was the fight game. Everything else, just leftovers. Once the competition was gone, everything changed. The UFC didn't have to fight for talent anymore. They owned the talent. If you were a fighter, you had two choices: sign with the UFC or fade into obscurity. Bellator tried to compete for a while, but it never reached the same level.
And that's an important point to add to what I was just saying is also once you become the only guys who people can get paid to fight through, you can pay people whatever you want. If you're the main person putting on fights, you bought all the other companies, or all the companies got shut down, the people who are still fighting who want to get paid, you just pay them whatever they're willing to accept. And some of these guys are willing to accept $10,000.
Now, Bellator is gone too, bought by the PFL, another so-called option off the table. The UFC became the gatekeeper to fame, to money, to legacy, and when you control everything, you control the prices too. Now,
why do they keep showing this picture of him with this Crisco bottle?
To fame, to money, to legacy, and when you can...
Why do they keep showing this picture? What's up with this? What is it? Is this a meme? Is this something I don't know? Y'all let me know.
Control everything, you control the prices too. Now, yes, if you're a big name, you're probably getting paid. Adesanya, John Jones, or Paddy Pimblett, you're bringing eyeballs, you're moving numbers, you're valuable. And for those guys, the UFC cuts bigger checks, as they should. But for the rest, for the guys trying to break through, the starting pay is the same garbage it's been for over a decade. 10 and 10, since at least 2010. And the $50,000 bonus, same as it was back in the Brock Lesnar days. Meanwhile,
See, that makes sense. If it's the same pay since the starting days, like I said, in the very starting days of the UFC, they were down millions of dollars, and they just decided to not increase the pay for the fighters.
UFC's business exploded. The pay-per-view prices went up, the gate numbers tripled, and Dana White can't stop talking about how he's breaking all the gate records.
The gate was 11.5 million. UFC now holds number 1, 2, and 3 highest gate record of all time at the Kaseya Center.
The UFC is making 10 times what they were in 2010. But fighters at the bottom, they're stuck at 10 and 10. Maybe you can live with the fact that the UFC is a business first. But the one thing that shouldn't slip through the cracks is the starting contract. 10 plus 10 is disgusting. It's criminal. Let's do the math. You fight for 10 and 10. You lose. You only get 10. You pay taxes. Now you're at 7.
Yeah, you pay taxes. You have to pay for your fighting camp. You have to pay for your living. These guys dedicate their entire life to fighting. And you mean to tell me the most that they're able to get is 20K? Like, what?
You pay your trainer and your manager, you're left with maybe $4,000 for months of training. Weight cuts, brain damage. Honestly, it's literally better to beg on the street than to lose a UFC fight. It's not just about low pay, it's about control. The UFC controls everything. Who you fight, when you fight, what you get paid, and what sponsors you're allowed to have. You want to wear your own...
Oh, that's crazy. They control the sponsors that they're able to have, bro. I feel like fighters should be able to get their own sponsors, put them on their shorts and stuff. Kind of like any other sports does, but since these guys are like individual fighters and they're not on a whole team, I feel like they should be able to pick their own sponsors. That's kind of crazy. I do know people like Sean O'Malley, they make money off of merch and things like that. So if you have a really big brand in the UFC and people mess with your personal brand, you can make a lot of money off of merch sales and things outside of the UFC. But I guess you're not making any money on sponsorships, or I guess you're not able to choose your sponsor.
Sponsor in the cage? Nope. Only UFC approved logos. And guess who gets the check? Not you. Remember when fighters could earn real sponsor money? 5 figures, 6 figures. Now they get a tiered bonus based on how many UFC fights they've had. And it's not just sponsors. The UFC controls pay-per-view money too. You'd think if you're a champion, you got, let's say, $2 per pay-per-view buy, and your fight sells 1 million pay-per-views, $2 million, right? Nope. Here's how it actually works. From 0 to 500,000 buys, you only get $1 per buy. From 500,000 to 750,000, you get $1.50. Only after that, from 750 to 1 million, you get $2 per buy. So instead of getting $2 million, you get $1,375,000.
That's still not that bad. At least you're getting a piece of the pay-per-view. That's still not awful. He's robbing them, but it's not as bad as it could be, I guess.
So even if you sell out the arena, you're still getting scaled percentages like it's a phone data plan. And here's the thing, you can't complain, you can't speak out, because if you do, you might never get booked again. This isn't just about fighter pay, or sponsorships, or contracts. It's about how the business is structured. The UFC isn't just a fight promotion. It's the center of the MMA world. Now, if you want to be seen as the best, you fight in the UFC. Simple as that. The UFC decides who gets signed, who gets pushed, who gets paid. You don't negotiate like a free agent. You accept what's on the table or you don't fight. And most fighters can't afford to walk away because there's nowhere else to go. That's just what happens when one company becomes the market. The UFC...
Yeah, they literally have a monopoly. Now I can see why they're calling this a cartel. This is definitely giving some type of cartel monopoly vibes. I wonder if their government is going to come in and try to break up the UFC since they have a monopoly. But then the government hasn't come in and tried to break up ESPN, who has a monopoly on a lot of the sports. So, I don't know.
UFC built that dominance. They earned it, but it also means they don't have to share much.
Today, I'm working with Topps and giving away a prize pack of trading cards worth over $5,000.
Maybe this is just how the fight business works.
If you don't like it, there's a simple solution to this problem. Go start your own MMA organization. No barrier to entry. Knock yourself out. Pay them whatever you want to pay them.
But if you're a fighter entering that system, you should know exactly what you're signing up for.
All right, that's it for today's video, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed. It was a nice, quick, short video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know, do you guys think the MMA deals are fair? Do you guys think that Dana White is screwing them over? Do you think that since the UFC is making more money now, that the fighters should be getting paid more? Or do you think that they don't deserve the pay that they're getting because some of these people are just entry-level fighters? Y'all let me know in the comments below.